All right, folks, welcome back. It's day 10 of Hey Nostradamus by Douglas Coupland. Yesterday we had Jason going to visit his dad after the memorial debacle where his dad called one of his twin grandsons a monster and that he had no soul. And then his dad fell in the kitchen, cracked some ribs, cardiac bruising, and Jason went to see him. And while he was there, he said, "Hey, Dad, why'd you call me a murderer 11 years ago?" And his dad said, "I didn't call you a murderer. I simply said you had murder in your heart and you chose not to overcome it." Blah, blah, blah. More Reg's dumb stuff. And Jason is devastated again. And Reg ends with, "All I ever wanted for you was the kingdom." Jabbing his knife into Jason's heart. We also had Jason and Mom in the aftermath, and Jason has been accused of being the mastermind of the plot. And they had to move. The house got egged and paint bombed, and the one event that stands out, of course, is that the youth alivers come over when schools opened up. Youth alivers come back, and his mom shoots the shotgun in the car in the ground, telling him to. In the video. If you didn't watch the video, go watch the video because it's special effects. We're stepping up our game, aren't we, buddy? All right, so we're going to pick up on page 105. Jason, your sister's calling you. We're going to pick up on page 105, right there at the 3 asterisks.
Bye, guys. Well, I'm using Daddy's watch.
Bye, kiddos. Just in the door. A warm, dry night out, my favorite kind of weather, and so rare here. During Joyce's walk, I saw a car like the one Cheryl's mother, Linda, used to drive, a LeBaron with wood siding. The model looked good for the first week it was out, but a decade of sun and salt and frost had made it resemble the kind of car people in movies drive after a nuclear war or a pandemic. Linda wrote me sometime after we moved away. Now, Linda is Cheryl's mom, okay? So this is the letter that Cheryl's mom wrote to Jason sometime after he had moved. There's going to be a letter from Linda, Cheryl's mom, from Cheryl's dad, and Chris, Cheryl's brother. Lloyd is Cheryl's dad. It was mailed to my old address and forwarded to my aunt's house. It read, "Dear Jason, I'm deeply ashamed that I've not contacted you before this. In the midst of losing Cheryl, we were vulnerable and chose to listen to strangers and not our own hearts. At the time when you needed comfort and support the most, we turned away from you, and it's something Lloyd, Chris, and I face every day in the mirror. I don't ask your forgiveness, but I do request your understanding. It's been a few months since October 4, but it feels like 10 years. I've quit my job, and in theory, I'm supposed to be overseeing the Cheryl Anway Trust, but all I do is wake up, dress myself, drink some coffee, and drive down to this office space we've rented on Clyde Avenue. There's not much for me to do here. Cheryl's Youth Alive friends take care of the trust's every function, handling cash, checks, and credit card receipts, sending thank you notes, manning the phones, filling out tax forms, and so on. It's a busy place, but I don't fit in. I wish I could derive some sort of consolation from the trust's success, but I don't, and they all work so hard. They've got bumper stickers, bracelets, and postcards, and for what it's worth, a ghostwriter will soon be doing a book about Cheryl's life, which may or may not help other young people or their parents. It won't help me. I shouldn't be telling you this. This letter may never even find you. But nothing in the past months has brought me any solace, and how could it? In the last year of her life, my daughter was no longer my daughter. She was somebody else. I have no idea who it was who died in the shooting. What sort of mother would say that about her child? I've just had one of those moments. Maybe you've had them too. A moment when the distance and perspective I think I've put between me and Cheryl's shooting dissolves, and I'm right back on October 4 again. And then suddenly it's months later, and I'm a middle-aged woman sitting in a rainy suburb on a weekday, and her daughter is dead for no reason, and she never knew her daughter at all. Her daughter chose something else. Cheryl chose something else over me and what our family offered, and she did it with smiles for everybody, but with condescension. And what am I to do? There's nothing I can do. Some man or woman is going to write Cheryl's life story, and they're going to ask me questions, and I won't have a thing to say. I don't know if I'm angry with Cheryl or angry at the universe. Do you get angry, Jason? Do you? Do you ever just want to take your car out of the highway and gun the engine as fast as you can and then close your eyes and see what happens? A Thelma and Louise moment. Lloyd and Chris are taking things much better than I am. I'm lucky in that regard. Chris is young. He'll heal. Can't turn the page. There will be scars, but he'll make it through okay. We have no idea what to do with him in school. He's having a hard time readjusting to Delbrook, which they've just reopened. They bulldozed the cafeteria and built a new one in just 4 weeks. We might have to send him to a private school, which we can't afford. That's for another letter. Jason, I apologize. You don't need this on top of everything else, but then maybe you do. Maybe you need to know that there was someone else out there who loved the girl beneath the perfect smile, the girl who, to my mind, foolishly prayed for suffering so she could play at martyrdom. Jason, there's no one to talk to about this. All systems have failed me. In 5 minutes, I'll be fine again for a while, but right now the inside of my head feels like Niagara Falls without the noise. Just this mist and churning and no real sense of where earth ends and heaven begins. I beg your forgiveness wherever you are. Please write or phone or visit if you can. Please think of me kindly and know that that is how I think of you. Yours, Linda Anway. A letter from Mr. Anway came 3 days later. Dear Jason, Linda tells me she has written to you, and in so doing, she has shamed me. How can I thank you for your bravery on that horrible morning? You saved the lives of so many children without thought of your own safety. I drove down to your house earlier today, but it had been sold quite a while ago. There was no forwarding address for you, but I'm hoping Canada Post will track down your family with this letter. Linda hasn't been herself since October 4th. How could she be? I don't know what she wrote in her letter, but please take into account that we've both been running on empty for months now. That I didn't recognize the media smear job of your fine nature is a stain I will take to the grave. I asked if she had described the funeral for you, and she hadn't, so I will. It was Tuesday, the 11th of October, a week after the shooting. I thought the week would allow things to cool down, but instead things snowballed and have never stopped snowballing, just picking up steam and getting bigger and bigger, like a snowball going down a mountain, gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We opted to have a graveside ceremony only. This was a tactical decision made by Linda and me. The people from Youth Alive wanted to run the show with no regard for our wishes. We figured they'd be having events of their own soon enough. We were right. And we wanted something that was entirely ours and more intimate. That was a mistake. For traffic and crowd control reasons, the police asked that we not have a Cortez drive to the cemetery, but that we meet the coffin there. We thought they were overreacting, but we went along with their suggestion. Another bad idea, as it turned out. By 2 in the afternoon, there were hundreds of cars parked on the sides of the road around the cemetery. The RCMP escorted us in, and the cemetery was overrun with, the papers reported, about 2,000 people. My skin crawled. That's a cliche, but now I know what it means, like a slug crawling down the small of your back. There was a large white and blue striped canvas awning over Cheryl's grave area. And that was good. But what made me furious was that Youth Alive people had brought hundreds of black felt markers and passed them out to everybody. And by the time we got there, Cheryl's casket was densely covered both with teenagers and with the sorts of things teenagers write. They were treating my daughter's casket like a yearbook. Maybe I was mad because I'd chosen the casket in Cheryl's favorite shade of white, slightly pearly, and I'd been so pleased. Linda was upset about the felt pinning too, but we bowed to the inevitable. I suppose it's cheerful, really, to be buried with the goodwill of your friends all around you. Linda and I were offered pens, but we declined. Before Cheryl's funeral, Linda, Chris, and I had attended 2 other funerals. I thought they would prepare us for Cheryl's, but no, there's nothing that prepares you for the funeral of your own child. The minister was Pastor Fields. He did a fine job of the service, if I may say so, even if it was a bit too preachy for my taste. I'm still unsure what Cheryl found in religion, but I'd always thought her conversion was too extreme, and so did Linda. Linda says you've had a falling out with your religious friends, and even though they work like Trojans in the Cheryl Anway Trust, I'm with you all the way in thinking that they're slightly creepy. And it was a shock how quickly they and how profound, how quickly and how powerfully they denounced you. It's because I listened to them and not my own heart that I'm sending you a pathetic letter so long after the fact, instead of having invited you over to our home ages ago. This letter has become difficult to write, and it's through no fault of yours, Jason. You know what it is? I wish I'd taken one of those pens and written something on Cheryl's coffin. Why didn't I? What foolish pride prevented me from doing something so innocent and loving? Just one more thing to take to the grave with me. Sometimes it feels as if everything in life is just something we haul into the grave. And I'm going to pause this letter because I think that's another fantastic quote if you're looking for quotes. You don't have to use mine. I'm just pointing out ones that I would talk about and I would use if I were doing the project. Do your own quotes, but isn't that a powerful quote? Just one more thing to take to the grave with me. Sometimes it feels as if everything in life is something we haul to the grave. I mean, that's a dark, jaded, depressing way of looking at the world. It reminds me of Heart of Darkness when he says, grave thing life is. that mysterious arrangement of merciless logic for some futile purpose. The most you can hope from is some knowledge of yourself that comes too late, a crop of unextinguishable regrets. All you can hope for in life is some knowledge of yourself that comes too late to do anything about. It's just this regrets. That's all you have. And if Lloyd was saying it, it's these regrets that we haul to the grave, right? Whew. Cheryl's alive friends look forward to the grave the same way Chris and Cheryl used to look forward to Disney World. I can't share in this excitement, probably because I'm about 30 years closer to death than they are. They keep referring to Cheryl in her notebook with God is now here as some sort of miracle, and this I can't understand. It's like a 12-year-old girl plucking daisy petals. He loves me not. It doesn't feel miraculous to me. But the kids down at the trust office talk about miracles all the time, and this too baffles me. They're always asking for miracles and finding them everywhere. And as much as I'm a spiritual man, I do believe in God. I think that He created an order for the world. I believe that, and I believe that in constantly bombarding Him with requests for miracles, we're also asking that He unravel the fabric of the world. A world of continuous miracles would be a cartoon, not a world. I wished we'd rented a boat and gone out into the straits of Juan de Fuca and beached on some island and taken Cheryl into some woods, located a nice meadow, and buried her there among the wild daisies and ferns. Then I would feel she's at some kind of peace. But her grave now? I went up there yesterday, and it was a mound of flowers and teddy bears and letters. And in the rain, they'd all melted together, and it shouted confusion and rage and anger at me, which is what one ought to feel after such a heinous crime. But graves are for peace, not for rage. Wherever this letter finds you, I hope it finds you well and at peace, or something like it. When you return to North Van, might I ask you and your family over for dinner? It's the very least we could do. Yours fondly, Lloyd Anway. Right, so that's Lloyd's mom wrote a letter, Lloyd's dad wrote a letter, and now I said that terribly wrong. Cheryl's mom wrote a letter, Cheryl's dad wrote a letter, and now Cheryl's brother Chris is going to write a letter saying those first two letters were all total crap. And this is what really happened. This arrived 2 days after Mr. Anway's letter. Jason, I just caught my dad mailing you a letter. He tried to hide it between some bills, and when I pushed him, he told me that Mom had also written you, which wigged me out completely. I can all too well imagine the crock of lies he fed you. Mom, too. You need to know that everything they tell you, everything is outright crap. From the word go, they've hated you. After it happened, they took all the photos of you in Cheryl's bedroom and scratched out your face. There would be whole evenings when Cheryl's hypocritical preacher pals would sit in our living room and totally trash you with Mom and Dad. They reduced you to a scab lying on the floor beneath the toilet, being carried away by beetles bit by bit. Man, they were brutal. And they were extra brutal when they talked about, or rather talked around, sex. I mean, let's face it, the two of you are an item, but the alivoids made it sound like rape, and that it was your sole job in life to corrupt Cheryl. And once they tied the noose for you, they'd lay into how you always seemed like the kind of guy who'd plan and assist in murdering a whole school just to kill the girl he'd worked so hard to corrupt. I mean, get real. Some nights I had to leave the house. Most nights, actually. Mitchell Van Waters, Jeremy Krakis, and Duncan Boyle were in my grade, and they were such total wipeouts that people could barely remember they existed. They'd come into English class in these beat-up black leather jackets, acting like they were big-shot political guys starting a revolution, and they'd sit there writing lyrics from Skinny Puppy on their cargo pants with felt pens and liquid paper. I remember watching Mitchell and Duncan having a wicked scrap with hunting knives down by the portables, all because Duncan brought a 6-sided dice, not a 12-sided dice for one of those role-playing games they were into. In social studies, Duncan brought in a solid-state panel from the TV set and spent the class in the last row writing hex symbols all over it, but they were fake symbols he was inventing, which looked a lot like the pictures of crop circles he'd photocopied for the class the year before. And they wondered why nobody paid them any attention. They were messes, and there was no way you and they even breathed from the same atmosphere. So when they said you were connected to them, I think not. I was thinking about you on October 4th. You've seen the TV stuff like everyone else, but you left the scene, and I don't think you ever came back, and maybe you don't know what it was like to have been there. I was in PE, and during the class jog up the mountain, my friend Mike and I cut out and went down Queens Avenue to smoke. It was a beautiful day. Why waste it with a bunch of jocks? We got to talking with these 3 girls from the grade below us who were heading to the Safeway Deli down at Westview. Then we heard some shots. Funny, I'd never heard a real gun fired in my life, but I knew exactly what it was. So did Mike. We heard a siren, some more shots, and I bet you didn't know this, but that first siren wasn't for massacre victims. It was for that guy you hammered down by the shop classes. Anyway, the five of us decided to walk up the hill, and the shots continued. And then the SWAT team, the Navy SEALs, James Bond, and I don't know, Charlie's Angels, all arrived at once. And all of the students pouring out of the school, their heads looked like sugar crisps being poured from a box. Everybody was running as fast as they could, but they were all trying to look back too, and so they were wiping out all over. By the time we neared the front of the school, they were hauling out bodies, and well, no need to go into that. We were moved up to the top of the hill, but we could tell exactly who had blood on them and who was being treated. I saw you and you were covered in blood, but you were walking, so I assumed you're okay. And then I suddenly had a chill and I knew Cheryl was dead. I think ESP is BS, but that's what I felt. The rest of the day was a war zone. All of the parents began showing up from work and home, and they'd leave their cars parked wherever with the engine still running and the doors open. Once family members hooked up, the RCMP moved them up and onto the football field, and so the parking lot became the place for an ever-shrinking number of parents without children. Mom and Dad showed up, and around 3:30 we heard the news about Cheryl. Our brains were so fried by that point that it didn't even make sense. Mrs. Wong from next door drove us to the hospital in Dad's car. There was no way he could drive. Her two kids were in the cab but were unhurt. She'd have driven us to Antarctica if we'd asked. The hospital was another scene altogether. Dead and mended bodies rolling around like shopping carts in a supermarket. I don't even know why they or we stuck around. It was kind of pointless by then. I mean, we knew Cheryl was lost even before we arrived. We were so messed up. When it turned dark out, I was still in my gym clothes from PE class. Somebody, I don't remember who, gave me a windbreaker, and it was as I was zipping it up that I first heard the first rumor about you there in the hospital lobby. The rumors didn't even start small. Right from the outset, you were the mastermind. And when Mom and Dad found out, Mom went hysterical, and they had to give her a barbiturate, which is like this elephant pill from the 1950s. Dad took something too. And for the first week, they were floating on these things. Mom still is. I can always tell when it's time for her next dose because her breathing goes all choppy. They really were out of their minds that you were to blame. I tried sticking up for you and nearly got excommunicated from the family. And what did you ever do to those alivoids? They were brutal about you. But I was going to say that it was when it was announced at the end of the second week that you were innocent of all charges, Mom went even crazier and dragged Dad down with her. They refused to believe the RCMP's report. The you-know-who's had done a real number on the two of them. Anyway, this is the longest letter I've ever written and the most focused I've been since October 4th. You've moved or split town or something. Good for you. Lucky you. Can I come escape to wherever you are? Be strong, buddy. Chris. Through a Starbucks window, I'm watching the sunset, the color of children's aspirin as I crash land on two clonazepams. I paid $20 a pop for them from some Persian brat in his daddy's BMW down at the corner of 4th and Lonsdale, just blocks away from Mom's place. God, now I do feel like I'm prepping for an anger management class. But there's no class, and if you're still doing what I'm doing at my age, then a class isn't what you need. Money? Maybe. Ken got drunk as a log at his wedding, and while I was dancing with a bridesmaid, and he with Barbie, looped past me, stuck his face into mine, and with a hot breath of champagne, chicken breast, and vegetable medley said, "You'll never be rich because you don't like rich people." And then he whirled off. And he was right. I don't like rich people with their built-in towel racks that need a heating system that comes from Scotland. Scotland! With their double-door refrigerators with non-magnetic surfaces to discourage the use of fridge magnets, and with their Queen Charlotte Island red cedar shoe closets that smell like saunas. Here's what I did wrong. I installed the built-in towel racks on the wrong side of the bath, and Les went mental on me because the owner won't surrender the weekly payment until it's done properly. I care, but I don't care. But then Les is furious with the universe because his kid has a cataract, so I do care. But then at the same time, for God's sake, it's just a towel rack for a guy who, for whatever reason, needs to get his jollies with a warm towel every morning. So in the end, it's not possible to care. It's just towels. If rich guy uses one towel a day for a decade, it's still going to cost him over 80 cents a towel. And in any event, best friends don't fist fight over towels or towel racks, or if I ruled the world, they wouldn't. Forget about ruling the world. I can barely get the automatic doors at Save on Foods to acknowledge my existence. So I have to take what life sends me. I put a smile on it. I seethe. I leave work a few hours early. I get cranked in a downtown parking lot. I fly high and develop elaborate schemes to elevate human consciousness. I come down. I get cranked again, but I suspect the new amphetamine is cut with milk sugar, so I enjoy it less the second time. I think, wow, have I really watched two sunrises and two sunsets without having slept? I come down hard. I buy clonazepams from Persian twerps. I sit in a cafe and scribble on pink invoice papers. Off to Mom's. Got to rescue Joyce. It's the next morning, or at least McDonald's hasn't switched over to their lunch menu yet. A fast food breakfast. Drops of grease have elevated this morning's pink invoice paper into a stained glass document. My brain feels like a cool, deep lake. Did I really sleep for 12 hours? I'll even make it to work by noon today, which will probably put Les in such a good mood that he'll forget the string of 6 near satanic messages he dumped into my answering machine. Well, nephews, when I went to my mother's place last night after Starbucks, your mother, Barb, was there, leaning on the kitchen counter, and the big discussion was about why Reg is such a bastard, a subject my mother has given much thought to. As I walked in the door, they both took one look at me, and Mom said, "You, into the shower right now. When you're finished, change into something from the guest room closet. I've got some cream of cauliflower soup and French bread here. You'll eat some of that, and then you're going right to bed in the guest room. Got it?" From the bathroom, I heard some of what my mother and your mother were saying. "Well, the initial attraction was that his family grew daffodils. Still grows them. I thought that was so amazing. I thought only good people could grow daffodils. What would bad people grow? I don't know. Bats, mushrooms, algae. But daffodils? They're the most innocent flower on earth. They're a member of the onion family. Did you know that?" I didn't. Learn something new every day. Aren't narcissus the same as daffodils? They are. Most people think they're different, but they're not. Wouldn't a narcissus be, well, not quite evil, but not innocent either? Vain? Reg had an answer for that. You want to hear it? Tell me. He said, "Who are we to slap the human sin of vanity onto some poor flower that did nothing more than be given a name?" That's kind of nice. He also looked at the flowers at our wedding, anthuriums, ginger, and birds of paradise. He said after that he thought they were slutty. Oh. The two women watched me enter the kitchen. Neither of them had any illusions. Mom said, "Here's some orange juice. Your sister's probably screaming for vitamin C." Jesus, Jason, shave already. You could sharpen a hunting knife on your 5 o'clock shadow. Mom placed a soup bowl onto the counter. To them it was nothing, but to me this moment was a brief taste of heaven. Barb asked my mom, "When did Reg start turning gonzo on you? With religion?" "Yeah. Maybe a year after Kent was born. There was no specific trigger." "Jason, honey, use a napkin. I just washed the floor." "Overnight?" "No. I remember his face hardening about the same time, his cheek muscles losing slackness. It was probably something to do with serotonin. If I'd secretly dosed his coffee with Wellbutrin or another one of these new drugs, we'd still be a functioning happy couple. But instead, he just kept losing it and losing it. By the time the kids started school, we were in separate beds. I was drinking big time by then. He liked it because it kept me in one place, and because when I was drunk, he didn't need to speak to me. Not like I wanted to speak to him. Cell phone just rang. I have to go. Les says this week's check cleared, so why don't we go have a beer, celebrate? It's 11 a.m. Okay, it's been 6 days since my last entry in this journal, and I'm going to record what happened as fully as I can remember. Now, that's a really good place to stop because then he goes and tells this very important piece of what happened to him on these days that he's blacked out. Now, remember, he said, I'm prone to blackouts, and if I take anything with any kind of pills or any kind of drugs with the drinking when I black out, I block out for even longer. Okay, so I'm going to put day 10 ended here, although we'll start, that first paragraph again, and we'll hear what happens to him because it's going to be important. Well, I keep saying that, but it's all important. It all ties together. All right, so that's it for day 10. Gonna pick up there again tomorrow.
Bye. Hey, no, Mr. Damas.
All right, gotta get up where the camera can see you. All right, Jason wants to say goodbye to Hey Nostradamus.
Hey, Mr. Damas.
That's the book we're reading. You gotta say bye to all my seniors.
Bye, seniors. Bye, seniors. Sweating.
You've been outside playing?
Again, we only have 15 minutes.
All right.
And Maddie wasted most of it.
Okay. All right, everybody. I'm gonna go deal with this, and we gotta make another video and maybe a film video for my AP kids. All right, you push the button. Talk to you later. Bye. Love you. Miss you.